Go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you all to our first ever SEAONC Board Town Hall. Today's meeting is going to provide our members with a review of some of our recent activities and maybe more importantly, our upcoming initiatives. This is also your opportunity to meet your current board members, minus Janelle Maffei, who's under the weather, but please ask questions and provide us your input regarding the future direction of SEAONC. This event will be recorded, and the recording and the slides from today's presentation will be made available to all of our members. As I mentioned, we are here to listen to you, so please input your questions into the chat box. If you'd like your question to be confidential, you can send your chat directly to me. Today, we're going to divide our meeting into three primary segments. We're going to cover our business first. We'll introduce you to some new initiatives, and then we'll finish up with some celebrations. After each of the three segments, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A, so just add your questions into the chat box as you have them. We'll start out our business section with a president's welcome. We'll follow that up with a financial report, and then we'll finish it up with some introduction to some proposed changes to our bylaws. With that, I'd like to start my president's welcome today with a quote. Richard Branson once said, "Every success story is a tale of constant adaptation, revision, and change." So by that standard, 2020 was SEAONC's most successful year in history. Our board was unable to meet in person. All of our committees have been virtual, and all of our programs have been web-based. Yet, we've experienced extremely strong levels of participation, networking, success, and engagement. The challenges of the past year stimulated the SEAONC board to take a fresh look at SEAONC. To jumpstart this opportunity, we increased our board meeting cadence to twice monthly and got right to work. One of the first things we addressed with our renewed energy was our strategic plan and our associated implementation. Particularly considering that we're an organization with an annually rotating board, a long-term strategy is critical. This year's board revisited, amended, and ultimately endorsed the standing strategic 5-year plan. In concert with the greater strategic plan, the board developed a 1-year implementation plan with actionable initiatives aimed at advancing our vision. We're really happy to report that we've made great progress on this implementation plan and look forward to sharing our progress with you today. But we recognize that strategy can only be effective if operations sufficiently support an association's initiatives. A systemic approach was launched to continuously improve SEAONC's operational performance, capacity, and really our member experience. This approach included an increased focus upon fiscal responsibility with a prioritization on member value. In addition, our bylaws and policies and procedures are being transformed to ensure inclusiveness and accuracy. Emboldened with a clear strategy and operational means to implement it, we turned our focus to communicating these initiatives to our membership. Under the leadership of board member Joyce Feng, SEAONC committed to a substantial overhaul of its communication mechanisms. Particularly during times of isolation and decreased connectivity, strong communications are critical to the stability and growth of our organization. Later today, you'll hear about several efforts, including re-envisioning the SEAONC webpage, and our newsletter, which is now named the SEAONC Post. Lastly, we recognize that email fatigue for our members is quite real, so we've committed to alternate mechanisms to connect, including social media and today's town hall. While there are many strategic initiatives that we're very pleased to share with you today, one particularly rises above the rest. This past summer, the board, in partnership with our committees and our members, initiated a deep discussion and renewed commitment to furthering equity, diversity, and inclusion for our profession. While those discussions represented an important step to establishing a vision, actions are what lead to true progress. To that end, SEAONC has committed to a number of actionable DEI initiatives worth highlighting here today. They include deeper collaboration with SEAONC and NCSEA's newly formed DEI and SE3 committees. It includes partnering with SE3 to provide a monthly highlight called the DEI Spotlight in the SEAONC Post. We've provided financial and strategic input to our Business Forum and SE3 committees to jointly host a firm leader DEI roundtable and cohort program. We've connected SEAONC with local chapters of the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE, and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, SHIP, of which we'll speak later. And lastly, we've launched our DEI endowment, again, which we'll cover later in the program. These DEI initiatives, including collaborating with SEAONC, NCSEA, NSBE, and SHIP, reinforce the critical importance of networking. For the past 11 months, and likely the foreseeable future, we've not been afforded the opportunity to network with our SEAONC colleagues. While we recognize social distancing is a current necessity, it's really the antithesis of SEAONC's rich history of bringing like-minded people together. Your board has committed to using the most relevant and resonant mechanisms to creating networking and connectivity for our members. Some notable examples include contests, trivia, social media, and casual networking events, such as the Engineering Interactions Past President Series. SEAONC is fully committed to addressing the challenges we face now and in the future. Despite today's social, governmental, and economic uncertainty, structural engineers continue to demonstrate unwavering commitment to our clients and society. Sincere thanks for joining us in our first ever board town hall. I hope you agree that your organization is making great strides to continuously improve both our profession and our community. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce SEAONC's treasurer, Ben Moore, to give our financial report.
Everyone, thanks, Emily. So as Emily said, I'm Ben Moore. I'm a second-year director, and I'm the treasurer this year. Just a couple of quick slides here. We are endeavoring to improve our transparency, and that's a long-term goal. And a good way to do that is to sort of open up the books. So what you're seeing here is this year's budget. And right now, the pie chart that you're seeing is our income. And so for those of you who are curious, the majority of our income comes from dues. After that, the next biggest pie wedge is investments and sponsors. Many thanks to the Continuing Education Committee and all of their hard work for bringing in about 15% of our income. And then we do get some help from the newsletter, the webpage, and a few other things. Then moving on to expenses, they add up almost exactly to the same 400K number. The biggest pie slice is just our operational expenses. And then there's a big pass through. The next biggest pie slice is that, when you pay dues to SEAONC, we turn around and pay a portion of those dues to SEAONC. So you're really paying dues to both organizations. And then, we of course spend some money on our committees and a few other things. And the big picture here is that we really wanted to have a conservative budget estimate for this year, because when we were creating this budget, things looked pretty dire. And so we wanted to make sure that we were being careful and conservative with the association's finances. And then the other question that you might have is, how much money does SEAONC have in the bank? And when you kind of add it all up, it looks something like this. And the numbers aren't on here, but the reserves are approximately 53% of the 880,000 of total assets that we have. And then we have operations, that's about 40% or so. And then there's some money in the SEAONC Foundation, that's the remaining 7%. So you can think of the reserves as investments. Those are sort of stocks and bonds and other things. And then the operations is more liquid. We're talking more like checking accounts and savings accounts. And here's Kevin.
Somebody had to do it, so I figured I would do it. Start talking with mute on. So I'm Kevin Moore. I'm your vice president for this year. I wanted to just give you a chance to see we've got a major push. We're taking advantage of some of the changes that are happening, as Emily indicated, about bylaws and the way that we operate. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the legal operating document, which are the bylaws, kind of match what it is that we think we do on a regular basis. Defines the association and the organization, empowers us to do things, kind of keeps us in line, if you will. But we want it to be broad and inclusive. How they started, it was originally developed, obviously with the association, but the association existed prior to bylaws being created. And when they were first created in the 1950s, things, of course, were very, very different. And they've only been changed a few times since then. And most of those changes were not very broad or grandiose. And we need to actually start thinking a little bit differently now. So this broad-based approach gives us an opportunity to get more refined in our policies and procedures and really focus on the things that are most important. Just a little point of reference is that we developed these in concert with our other MOs when they were first developed. And so as we make these changes, we wanted to make sure that people understood they kind of fall in major themes. So when you see them, which you will eventually, you'll see that we made some changes to align what the bylaws do as it relates to SEAONC, make sure that what we're doing actually is in the bylaws and vice versa. We wanted to clarify. Many of us, as we first read them, had to say, what the heck does this thing say? So we had to revise the wording and kind of get some clarity to there. Some consistency, there's different references to some important aspects within the bylaws, and they were very inconsistent. We really wanted to repair sections that didn't quite work, and this is not necessarily policy. And the last little bin that we talk about is update. And what we want to do is make sure that the bylaws reflect associations as they exist now. And almost all associations are a little bit different than we initially started operating, but also so that we're sensitive to societal changes and our bylaws reflect that. So as we talk about bylaws, there's a process to change them, and the membership is made aware of the changes that are proposed, either by members or by the board in this case, or the board working with our bylaws committee. And that's just to make sure we have a bunch of eyes looking on it, agreeing that the path that we have set forward makes some sense. And we're currently doing that now. So there was an initial set of changes developed and approved by the board. And the bylaws committee is now working with us to make sure that we've got something that is ready for presentation to the membership. We will post those bylaws for your review and basically open up the dialogue, if you will, as you see things and want to understand them better. That'll happen in March or April. And we're going to have a vote of the membership as the bylaws require, and that's going to occur in May. So I get Emily actually is on mute, so that's good. I don't.
Yeah, thank you. Trying to run multiple screens here. Thank you, Kevin. This would be your first opportunity to ask questions on any of the business items you heard. I do have a couple that have come in directly, and so I'd like to ask the first one to you, Ben. It's a financial question. How do SEAONC's current total assets of almost 900,000 compare to other points in SEAONC history?
Yeah, I'd say it's comparable. While our investments do go up and down a bit, certainly over the past few years, they've been close to that number.
Super, thank you. Got a question here. Again, Ben, you can keep yourself off mute. What expense items are included in the operations portion of the budget?
My understanding is that a lot of that is the SEAONC office and all of the hard work that they do to actually keep us running. And we do hand off a large amount of administrative work to them with the website, the newsletter, and keeping the finances straight and a million other things. They're running this meeting.
Thanks, Ben. I'll take this next one. The question asks, does SEAONC plan to increase dues? So I will not pretend to make a commitment on a future board's behalf, but I can comment that this year's board, at the beginning of the year, we thought really hard about our finances, but also our member value. And we focused on increasing member value. We currently are able to keep a balanced budget with the income sources we have. So at least at the present, we aren't envisioning a dues increase. However, as with all things in life, I do expect there will be a future board that will have to come to that decision. I'm going to pose the next question here. It came in to me to Susan, who you haven't had the chance to meet yet, but Susan is our secretary and in charge of a lot of our member renewals. So Susan, the question is, how are member renewals looking this year, and what are the membership trends at SEAONC?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Emily. So SEAONC hit a high in membership in the late 90s when we had about 1,700 members. And it's kind of been a trend in professional organizations that over the last couple decades, membership levels have been decreasing. So we currently have about 1,000 members signed up, and that's luckily about the same as last year. So we're happy to report that it's been pretty stable for the last 3 years.
Thanks, Susan. Ben, I hope you're still off mute because I've got another budget question for you. How does this year's budget compare to a typical budget in a non-COVID in-person year?
Yeah, so if you look at the previous 2 years, they're significantly above what we have now. You know, we had a balanced budget with about 400K worth of income and expenses, and the previous 2 years, they were over 500K, so significantly more.
Super. Thank you. I don't have any other questions coming through, so we'll go ahead and move to the next portion of our agenda here, which is new initiatives. We have a handful of topics we'd like to cover here with you. The first one being commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. We have a couple different topics to cover as it relates to DEI. We'll share with you some background on the Special Projects Initiative, which hopefully you've seen announced via email. We'll then dive into our disaster response plan, which is a group effort between committees and board. We'll discuss the new grad initiative that Jonathan Buckaloo is championing. We'll talk a little bit about some of our university outreach efforts this particular year. We'll speak to our increased communications, as I alluded to with Joyce Feng. We'll briefly update you on some of the behind the scenes committee initiatives, and then we'll finish up with sharing some of our efforts this year to collaborate with some of our key partners in the Bay Area. So again, keep your questions coming on those particular topics. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A when we get to the end of that segment. So you guys are stuck with me again for one more part. I'd like to start our discussion here today on DEI, on sharing some of the efforts that have happened behind the scenes to be a little bit more intentional with our outreach. Specifically, we've identified some key partners in our DEI pursuit. We realize this isn't something that we can do alone or in isolation. So we've strategically reached out to both NCSEA and SEAONC to be more coordinated in our DEI efforts. I mentioned in my opening address with both the SE3 initiatives, which there's now an MO local, state, and national opportunities, and then also with the newly launched DEI committee at the SEAONC level. But for the first time this year, we decided we needed more partners than just NCSEA and SEAONC. And so for the first time, we reached out to NSBE, as I alluded to, the National Society of Black Engineers and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And I would like to recognize Priscilla Wynn, one of our members who is currently leading SHIP this year, their SHIP chapter. And I'd like to specifically highlight a new program that we are launching with NSBE Junior Bay Area. So NSBE Junior is a K through 12 outreach arm of NSBE. And we've started a collaboration between the board, our public outreach committee, and SE3. And we are going to be putting on a virtual workshop. So we're meeting bi-weekly with NSBE Junior and developing a hands-on workshop that will be performed with K through 5 and also 6 through 12 students. We've purchased these really innovative models that you can see here on the screen. And I'd like to give a quick shout out. Anyone interested in this particular initiative should reach out to Public Outreach Committee, who is leading this effort for SEAONC. I'd like to just make a quick plea to recognize that real change takes a significant commitment, persistence, and real intention. We need your voice and active participation to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and to fight racial injustice. I strongly believe that SEAONC and our structural engineering profession are really well positioned to improve DEI in our communities and contribute to a better future for all. So with that, I will hand it off to Kevin to speak specific to our endowment.
Thank you, Emily. So I'm super excited to present to you and discuss the first ever SEAONC endowment. And in this case, we determined that we wanted to focus on DEI. As Emily indicated, we needed to be very intentional. And it's just really the right time for us. So it's very exciting and really kind of fell perfectly aligned both with the COVID situation, so we could actually focus our efforts and do the outreach that Emily indicated. A lot easier to set up those meetings virtually versus in person. And it really gave us the opportunity to move forward in a very concerted sense. So we've seeded the DEI endowment with a $100,000 initial investment, and that comes from our reserves and some other windfalls. And it's in essence a collection. If you were to go into your piggy bank and grab everything you had there and multiple piggy banks, you would start to understand how we put all that together. But we're pretty excited because that starts the investment windfall, I'll call it. And so since we've released this on MLK Day, we've received over $27,000 in donations. A generous donation from David Friedman helped move us along, and we're super happy that we continue to get those donations, which happen through the SEAONC Foundation. So if you Google up SEAONC Foundation, you'll get an opportunity in the drop-down menu to choose the SEAONC DEI endowment. So when you go to donate, that's what you want to do. And then what that does is it puts it into this restricted fund endowment. And so endowments are basically like, oh, I don't know, if you're a college kid and you wanted to actually have a house once you graduated, you might invest everything you can and then only spend the income that you get. And so what is called a corpus, basically the capital that you're investing, makes some amount of money, and we try to put the investments into things like dividends so that we can actually spend that without selling things, if you will. And so that allows us to then spend those dividends. And for those of you who are financially savvy, and even for those that are not, the bigger the corpus, the more endowment funding, if in essence you have, because you only spend the amount of money that you make on that corpus. So obviously, the more investments we have, the better, and that's really what we want to do. We've established in the documents, the endowment has a set of documents that are available to you to review, an independent committee that is going to oversee this. So there's continuity far beyond the existence of this board. It's a perpetual endowment, so it will live on forever with people like yourselves who are interested in its success and the success of SEAONC, recognizing the need for DEI and improvement in structural engineering as it relates to our inclusion and equity. So that committee, there's some magic to that. Committees are actually part of what we have in the association, both in the bylaws and our policies and procedures. So it allows us to form those things and still kind of work our way through the association. But once the committee is formed, they're relatively independent. There's some collaboration and insight that comes from the board, but in essence, like all endowments, it has a group. Sometimes endowments have boards, foundations have boards that decide how to spend that money and to make sure the investments are actually meeting our goals. But those goals are all set in the policies associated with the DEI endowment. The restricted funds identifier, just to remind you, is this money can only be spent on those items that are related to DEI initiatives, actions, programs, and about 50%, and it's up to 50%, can be spent on other associations that are successfully moving along in that realm. So as NSBE Junior or NSBE, SHIP, those groups can actually receive a donation directly from us through this fund, and with the intent that that could happen on a regular basis without affecting our operational costs. I think I've covered everything there. So right now we are in a fundraising environment. And so from today forward through March 31st, we're going to have a big push. And thanks to Ashraf for a very generous donation. He's identified that he will match every donated dollar from us or anyone else who donates to the SEAONC Foundation with the tag that it goes to the SEAONC DEI Fund. He will give $3 for every dollar that we donate. And he's a smart businessman, so he's not going to say that's open-ended, because I think he'd actually owe us probably $500,000 if we really put our heads together. But nonetheless, we very much appreciate Ashraf recognizing the importance of this, and really giving everyone an opportunity to donate now when we need it, to get things started. And in case your retirement plan committee people haven't talked to you, you get the most bang for your buck if you invest immediately. So at the very beginning, those dollars that come in today are going to be hugely beneficial 20, 30, 40 years down the road. So please donate often, donate big. And if you want to get more information about the DEI endowment, we've got the website here on the bottom, and then the SEAONC Foundation to make that investment. You can find that either through this website or directly through SEAONC Foundation. And I think this is going to Katie. Yes.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. I'm a second-year director on the board, and I am excited to announce that the board is excited to announce, which you might have already seen, that the Special Projects Initiative, SPI, will be funded this year. And SPI funding has traditionally been up to $10,000 per project, but the board has received feedback that this was not enough to create meaningful work. And this year we were able to update that funding to up to $30,000 per project. And these are projects that will benefit SEAONC and its membership, structural engineering community at large, and or the community at large with a focus on structural engineering. And so a list of different project ideas is provided here, but projects certainly aren't limited to these categories. And also a reminder that any principal investigator and grant applicant must be SEAONC members. And just to get you more excited, the impacts of past SPI award winners have been the development of SEAONC's earthquake performance rating system, code changes allowing for higher shear values for anchor bolts in wood sill plates, the development of San Francisco's soft story retrofit ordinance, the development of tables and details to enhance the capacity of anchors in concrete podium slabs. And the SE3 committee was actually an SPI proposal that turned into a committee. So great things in the past. Hopefully we'll get some exciting new projects this year. And just a reminder that proposals are due February 22nd, so just under a month from now. Back to Kevin.
Thank you, Katie. On behalf of Janelle, she would be presenting this to you now, but obviously we have some board initiatives that are outside of just committees, but even at a board level, fortunately, we have some committees to support us. So our disaster response plan is liaison. Janelle is starting that, but it just so happens that she's the perfect person to do that. Her role at CEA has exposed her to a phenomenal wealth of resources and experience related to how to respond to disasters in terms of preparation and establishing graphics and having contacts and things like that. So with that knowledge, she has identified an opportunity to move this forward, and she can stay involved even when she's off the board. And our sister member organization in Southern California has a very detailed plan that we utilized their initial start of this process, and we want to thank them, and that's shown here on the slide. So by rights, I've been practicing since 1995, and I've been told the day that I graduated that in 30 years, there's going to be a gigantic earthquake. So we're way overdue, right? I'm expecting this thing to happen any day, and we really are not prepared as an association, or really even as a profession in our local area. We'd kind of all be a little bit more scattered than we want to be, and the association isn't really in a good position to be strong and to provide a strong voice and a little bit of direction there. So we want to do that. We want to make sure that SEAONC is prepared to speak on behalf of the profession. And we've seen some of that occur in some of the local disasters where SEAONC might be on site after a collapse or a failure and maybe isn't prepared adequately, or we don't have some written documents or understand who should actually be speaking on behalf of SEAONC. We have that in the bylaws and the policies and procedures, but the people who are actually speaking may not be that comfortable, and there's lots of opportunity for us to put a good face forward. So we want to make sure that we get that in place. The board is partnered with DES, and DES is thankfully just chock full of people that really understand the value of this and want to help us move forward. And so we're starting to work through this process and reaching out to other committees and other members to try to grow this group through existing buildings or resilience, or even through new membership. And so if you're interested at all in any of this, please contact us or contact the committee, and we can definitely use your help. Thank you, Emily. I think we're off to Jonathan now.
Hi, everyone. I'm a first-year director on the board, here to talk about the new grad initiative that I'm leading. As we all know, when you kind of come out of school, you get this bright, cheery face, and at some point you become a practicing engineer. There's a nice little arrow here to show that how we'd like the process to go. Unfortunately, that path is actually fraught with traps and dangers and all sorts of fun things that we get to learn on the fly. And so putting our heads together, we thought it would be, we know it's a challenge that you learn a lot of great stuff in school, but when you get out into the real world, there's so many things that school does not teach you that you have to pick up on the fly. And so we started this initiative with the understanding that we need to kind of look at getting more resources to young engineers coming out of school to help navigate some of these traps and trials and things that they're going to have to face along the way so that they can get over that steep learning curve. And so this initiative is going to develop resources to help young engineers adapt to the working world. And so what I want to do is get a feel from you guys, the audience, about what programs you have underway and just a few high-level questions to get your feel on things. So I wanted to put up a poll. The first question is does your company have a new hire training program? And by this, I mean every new hire gets a similar onboarding process. I think if it's really a one-on-one project manager, case-by-case thing, I wouldn't really consider that a program. And so if you could please answer that question, and we'll give it a few seconds to submit here until things have stabilized, and we'll post those results. And the overall goal is just to figure out where we stand and use this audience as a proxy for the whole membership to figure out what kind of programs we have underway. Well, 50-50, well, not quite 50-50, but about half, and which is more than I thought. Talking with lots of people, I think it probably depends on how you define training program, but it seems like there's some programs out there, but probably about half-ish the audience doesn't really have one. So follow-up question to that one is, do you think that more resources are needed to be developed to train new grads? That either you're a young engineer and you're coming out of school recently, or you're one that trains young engineers. Do you think it would be helpful to have sort of resources or webinars or documents to help get the new grads to navigate this troublesome process? Give it a few seconds until we can get everyone in there. Survey says yes. Good. That means I'm not wasting my time. Appreciate that one. Vote of confidence there. And last question is totally spitballing. We've thrown out lots of ideas, and we had to do this to you guys. But if you were going to put some topics together, and we only let you pick one, which of these topics would you think best value for your company? As if you were training new grads and you think, well, this is a really big gap, and there's a lot of intriguing ones on there, but I'm going to force you to pick one and submit that one. And this is just to get a sense of this process. There's so many topics out there. I wanted to get a poll of feel for what you guys think, because ultimately we're doing this for everyone in the membership. And so it's really important that we get that input from you guys. I may give a few more seconds for this one. There's actually quite a few choices there. And while that finishes up, pretty decent split. I think drawing, organization, and specs are something that nobody really likes to talk about, but I think is a critical part of our functioning businesses. And existing buildings actually came in second. I was a little surprised by that one. So these are all great, and it seems like we value all of these topics. And so our program is getting underway, and our hopes is by the next week or so to get a more detailed information from you guys. We'll be sending out a survey that is asking more detailed questions so we can make sure we craft this program for what its ultimate purpose is, which is to help you guys train new grads coming out of school. And so we appreciate any thoughts when we send out those surveys, especially ones that are very detailed. We're planning on not making it a rank this topic 1 through 5 survey. We're actually wanting to make it a little more open-ended. So to give you guys the chance to tell us what happened when you guys were hired as a new undergrad, or you're hiring new people. Tell us about those experiences, and so we can really help those move along. And so that, I'll pass it off to Susan.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, I'm Susan LaFleur. I'm a first-year director, and this year I'm serving as the SEAONC secretary. So this year, the board really wanted to help university students find employment, whether they're looking for internships or full-time employment. We think it's especially important to help students this year because they've been faced with a lot of challenges given the current pandemic. So to help them, we're offering a 3-part series, which includes a student resume workshop, a student interview workshop, and a career fair. The resume and interview workshops are happening prior to the career fair so that the students can come ready to speak with employers. And actually the resume workshop happened last night, and there's a screenshot from the resume workshop on the slide there. So the goal of the career fair event is to help students find employment and to help SEAONC member firms connect with students. I'd like to offer a special thank you to CSI, the event sponsor, that has allowed the workshops and the career fair to be free of charge to students. So thank you. The career fair is going to be hosted on a virtual platform called Brazen. This platform was specifically developed for hosting career fairs and is the platform of choice for many major universities. So it works pretty smooth. To encourage students to participate, we're offering a free student SEAONC membership to the participants. So these are the universities that are currently signed up to participate in the career fair. The good thing about the virtual platform is that will allow firms to meet with candidates from multiple universities kind of all in one place on one platform. We have over 100 students currently signed up from 18 universities. And the career fair is going to be held on Tuesday, February 9th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So coming up. So far, there are 27 firms registered to attend, and these are the firm logos kind of as of yesterday when we finished putting the slides together. And registration is open until February 2nd, so there's still time to sign up. And there's a link at the bottom of the screen here that you can use to sign up. And I believe the slides are going to be distributed after the presentation, so you can follow the link later. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Joyce. This is my second year on the board. There is some very exciting progress along the communications front to report. First thing is our newsletter. We have a new name that came about from a naming contest open to all members. Our newsletter is now called the SEAONC Post. Instead of the PDF attachments you've had to download previously, the newsletter is now in the body of the email and mobile friendly. We are still working on improving the newsletter, so please continue to email the SEAONC office if you have recommendations or comments. Second exciting thing to report is our LinkedIn page. It went live in October, and now we have close to 300 followers. Please hit the follow button the next time you are on the page. We post updates every few days. Our next big undertaking is to reorganize the SEAONC website, www.seaonc.org. We want to make it easier to use and be more welcoming. I don't want to give anything away, so I just want to say it will be exciting and you will see changes in the next couple months. Our current and future goals for the communications portion are listed here on the slide. I'm not going to talk about any in detail. What is important to say is that we want to connect with our members by sharing news, encouragement, accomplishments, and celebrating with all of you. You are not alone. And of course, we want to hear from you, so please reach out to us and please reach out to each other. Lastly, we are working to start a communications committee to carry on what has started this year in terms of newsletter, social media, and website. If you're interested in heading or becoming part of this committee, please let us know. Thank you. With that, I want to hand it over to Katie with committee updates.
Great, thanks, Joyce. So one of the initiatives the board is focused on this year is increasing support to and communication with SEAONC's committees. So this fall, we developed a committee handbook for the committee chairs, and it provides templates for developing budgets and running meetings. The handbook also serves as a location to keep track of contact info for past chairs, vice chairs, and board liaisons, with the intent of facilitating smoother and more regular transfers of committee leadership from year to year. In October, the board had 2 marathon sessions where we met with each committee chair for 20 minutes at a time. And these sessions were used to discuss ways that the board can support each individual committee, each committee's charges for the year, both committee developed and board initiated charges, among other things. Many items were discussed. And another thing we were focusing on with committees, and hopefully many people on this call attended, were the committee presentations, the events that occurred the last 2 weeks. And these events were intended to take the place of what is typically committee night before the November board meeting, or sorry, SEAONC dinner meeting. And also to allow membership to hear from our committees about all the great work they've been doing this year. And so we'll do another quick poll just to see what people thought of the committee presentation events over the last 2 weeks versus what we've previously been able to do in the past, which is the November in-person committee night. And this would just be for going forward, obviously after things settle back down. So if you could say which you would prefer to see in the future in a post-COVID world. We'll just wait for those results to come in. Hopefully very soon. All right, great. Okay, so it looks like people would prefer to see a hybrid of the two. And I think it'd be a nice combination because the in-person event lets you actually talk to each chair individually and find out a little bit more about the committees you're interested in, but the virtual committee presentation really allowed everyone to hear from every committee as to what they're working on. So another thing that the board has been doing to support committees this year is facilitating collaboration meetings. So there were 4 collaboration topics that the board came up with: internal content, external content, technical, and business. And the committees were grouped into these different topics. And the purpose of these meetings was so the committees could share ideas, discuss ways to collaborate with both each other and potentially other committees in SEAONC, and discuss ways to collaborate to support membership based on the individual or the specific topic of the collaboration meeting. So in November, the internal content and technical collaboration meetings were held. And some of the ideas you're hearing about today, such as the university workshops and virtual career fair, actually came out of those meetings. And then we'll be having the business and external content collaboration meetings in February. And we hope to make these annual meetings with the intent that topics multiple committees are working on will progress and grow, and then exciting new ideas will continue to be developed. And next is from Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Dix. I'm a first-year board member, and I'm going to talk about our recent efforts to partner with other organizations related to our field. SEAONC is one of a lot of organizations out there that serves the structural engineering community, and sometimes people have to pick which one that they're going to dedicate their time to. So this year, the board's been spending a lot of effort to reach out to those other organizations and to figure out how we can work together on some of our mutual interests. The goals with this are to bring more value to our members and also to strengthen the association. So you can see on this slide, there's a lot of variety in the different types of organizations. We've got organizations dedicated to improving practice and hazard safety. We've got community outreach organizations, organizations that cover the broader civil or professional engineering community. And then, of course, we have our SEA family. We already have pretty good relationships with a lot of these organizations, but the board's now working on enhancing those. And as we do that, we're also going to try to make these relationships last as we evolve them. And we're doing that by, we're going to be establishing some board liaison positions, both on our board and on the partner organization boards potentially. And then we're also going to make action plans to pass on to future boards as well. And this should give our members some longer term benefits. So those benefits, what are they? So one is that SEAONC's heavily weighted toward building structures, and with these enhanced partnerships, we should be able to start offering some content to a broader array of structures like infrastructure. Second benefit is you should start to see a little bit more of the current research that's going on out there. And let's see, the third is that there should be a lot more opportunities for kind of cross-pollination, idea sharing, collaboration, networking, that kind of thing. And then the last one I'll mention here, there are others, but the last one I'll mention is that you might start to see a couple of discounted rates for some partner events. So if you're not an ASCE member, for example, maybe you can attend one of their meetings at a discounted member price. So that's what you can expect to see from our partnership efforts. And I think now we are moving on to our last poll.
Thanks, Anna. If we can get the poll launched here. We've presented a bunch of initiatives to you, and we're just interested, this poll, you get to pick more than one. So we're interested in which of these initiatives are most beneficial and most interesting to you as a SEAONC member. We'll go ahead and publish those results here and share with you our findings. All right, I'm glad. I was worried that one of them would have no positive response, but it looks like the DEI initiatives are particularly important to our membership, and it's what makes, I think, SEAONC quite unique. So that's a wonderful response. But I see solid support for all of the initiatives, and our board will continue to prioritize all of them moving forward. With that, I'd like to open it up to Q&A for this portion of our presentation. You can see our various initiatives on the screen. I have a handful of comments that have come through so far. The first one is about the DEI endowment. And so Kevin, I'm going to pose it to you. This person says that they read the policy included in the MLK DEI announcement email, and it mentioned this SEAONC committee. How are members of that committee selected?
So initially, we're looking for input or interest. So please contact the board or any board member or the office. And then we will look for members and representatives that have certain characteristics, understand how an endowment works. Those are always a beneficial skill set, are obviously committed to the process, and there's a 3-year commitment to be on the committee, and are willing and able to manage that for the next 3 years or so. Board members generally can't sit, so it'll be a new selection of people, and we're just basically going to do the best we can as a board, identify the appropriate people, set them, and then as a committee, they will continue to fill themselves over the years. Thanks,
Kevin. Next one I have here is to you, Jonathan. It's an ambitious one. It asks, when will the new grad initiative be complete?
Well, we're still underway. I think our plan is to send out the survey within the next week or so, and get maybe February to get some results back in, and then March really set up a game plan for which topics we're going to try to bite off. My guess is it's going to be a lot more than we're able to tackle. And my hope is by the summer to have some preliminary, test runs of these resources, just so we can kind of troubleshoot the process and release them in time for the kind of new sort of fall class of graduating, people, students. That's the rough game plan. And if you're interested in joining or helping out, you can definitely email me. We're going to need it.
Thanks, Jonathan. And Joyce, I'll cue you up to come off mute. The last question I have here says, what social media platforms other than LinkedIn does SEAONC plan to use?
So there are over 100 popular social media sites. The next two immediate ones that we're looking at are possibly starting a Twitter account or a Facebook account. Not to date myself, but I grew up with a typewriter. So if anyone out there is savvy with social media, please reach out to anyone on the board or the SEAONC office.
Thank you, Joyce. Those are the end of our questions, but I'd encourage you to keep putting them in. If you have additional questions, we're happy to come back to some of these initiatives. But we will go ahead and move on now to our third and final portion of our presentation today, We'd like to do a few recognitions, and we also would like to give you a very quick snapshot of some coming events. So with that being said, I would like to first acknowledge our really wonderful SEAONC sponsors. While we are so excited, hopefully you can feel our enthusiasm coming through your computer screen to share all of our new initiatives today. We recognize that without these sponsors' support, we wouldn't be able to do much of these initiatives. So we're very excited to be making a more meaningful connection between our members and our sponsors, including information sharing. So hopefully you saw our Lunch and Learn that took place about a month ago. We plan on having more sponsor Lunch and Learns in the coming months. And also our virtual exhibit hall. It was our first ever exhibit hall. There's an opportunity still to visit that page. You can see the link at the bottom of the screen. But I would like to encourage our members here to join me in thanking our very generous SEAONC sponsors. With that, I briefly would like to just acknowledge that my personal story, while I was born and raised in California, my engineering story didn't start here. I started in Colorado, moved to Massachusetts, and found myself back here at SEAONC. And when I took over the helm as president, I heard from many past presidents who reached out and said, "How can I help you?" And I just want to recognize these individuals. It's such a testament to SEAONC's character and strength. So after these people asked if they could help me, I took them up on that offer. So you can see a couple of the initiatives we have, and the faces you see here, every single one of them has volunteered to support us this year. We've been hosting our engineering interactions, networking and social series. Marianne Phipps and Doug Hobach hosted the first one. Last night we had Ron Hamburger and Jim Malley. Next week will be Dick Dreyer, Taryn Williams, and then late in February we're going to have F. Hirsch and Lauren Wiley share, we are calling it Legends and Stories. So Raphael has committed to a late year jokes and codes session. So if you would like to join for an hour on a Tuesday evening with some of your fellow SEAONC members, this is your chance. We have past presidents hosting interviews with some key structural engineering members as part of the Hensoldt committee. And we have our very established and prestigious seismic experts, past presidents, assisting our seismology committee with brainstorming new initiatives and meaningful contributions in the code development process. So please help me in thanking our past presidents. They are a huge resource to SEAONC.
All right, and we also wanted to recognize that 3 SEAONC Excellence in Engineering Award winners also became SEAOC Excellence in Engineering Award winners. And the first one was ATC's, Applied Technology Council's, FEMA P 2006 Example Application Guide for ASCE 41. And they were an Award of Merit winner. And then Nava Youssef Associates New Stanford Hospital was an Award of Excellence winner. And also SOM's Moscone Center Expansion and Improvement Project was an Award of Excellence winner. So congrats to the people who worked on those projects.
Thank you, Katie. Last year, when the SEAONC board was asked to nominate a member, a SEAONC member to be considered for induction into the SEAOC College of Fellows, John's name came up immediately, and it was a pretty near slam dunk. From his long history at SEAONC to his involvement in research and codes, John really checks all the boxes. Personally, I was fortunate enough to serve on the SEAONC board with John for 2 years, and I can share with you that he brought an amazing perspective, balance, passion, professionalism to our board. He really encouraged us and elevated discussions about the value of structural engineers and SEAONC's role in advocating for our members and our profession. As you can see here, John's induction included really thoughtful words from his colleagues, Marianne Phipps, David Bonneville, Jim Malley, and Jack Maley. And I just would like you to please join me in congratulating John in his recognition to the SEAOC College of Fellows. Kevin, you're up.
Yep, so we gotta hurry up here and go to the next one. So Emily has done a great job of telling you what's coming up. So we have engineering interactions. We try to get that happen twice monthly, and I remember that's with our past presidents. And I think the next one that she indicated is coming right up, and that'll be something to attend and really enjoy. They've been fun. I attended last night's. We also have a considerable amount of technical content that is coming out. We don't typically have our classic CEC-driven webinars based on a series of information. We're doing that kind of sporadically throughout. So we have Bridges of Prosperity, which is a webinar happening on February 8th, discussing bridge work that is done all over the world. So very much like Engineers Without Borders or Doctors Without Borders, our engineering expertise making things better for people around the world. We have one, I just saw the announcement today for Oshpod CBC based changes. So Roy Lobo, you couldn't get it straight from the horse's mouth any better than that. He'll be giving you something on February 18th. We're going to talk about evaluation retrofit light frame residential buildings in March. So I know a lot of you practice in that realm, and so that'll hopefully give you some more information there. HSS connections, which is always a challenge for many of us doing some, I'll call it jewelry on some of these bigger buildings. We're going to have some technical presentation about that in March, and ATC 123, which is a very seminal bit of research that is getting pulled into the building codes as we speak. That's going to be talked about in April. And so keep an eye out for our newsletter and anything posted there. Remember that our committee meetings are happening monthly. They still happen, even though we're virtual. There's still going to be opportunities to join a committee, as Katie indicated before. We've done our best to reach out to you. If you have any questions or need more information, feel free to contact a board member or the office, and we can definitely connect you to a committee. We have a career fair coming up. It's the first ever career fair for SEAONC. Some of our other MOs actually do career fairs, but for us, this is a first time event. We're super excited about it. It's looking great so far. We have a number of you have brought your firms to the career fair, which we're super thankful for. Very much appreciate it. And over 100 students are actually already signed up. And as I've told Emily, I think most of them will sign up within a week before. So we actually expect a lot more students than just 100. We also, just to keep you kind of aware of what to look out for, we have our nominations for board members, vice president, all of the positions of officers and directors that come into the association. Those are happening in February. We have to get a nominating committee, and then the committee will work to get the nominations out to you for those positions. And then we will have our elections in May, and that'll include electing those that have been nominated, and will also include some of the bylaws. This February through May condition will also cover the bylaws that I talked about. Our business meeting is scheduled to happen on June 1st. And once you read the bylaws, you'll understand that that's a hard and fast rule for us as an association. So that is the first Tuesday of June. That's what will occur. And we will go through our normal committee meeting associated with, board meeting associated with that. So we look forward to seeing you there. Okay, Emily, I think we're on to questions, right?
We are. And actually, I have one question here that is going to be for you, so you can keep yourself off mute. The question asks, when will SEAONC plan to hold an in-person event again?
So we as a board have decided that we would not plan any in-person events for our term. And so all of the first year directors threw tomatoes at us and said, this is just really not fun. And we agreed. But we just thought it was safer to do that and then reassess as we go along. So with luck, if we can get our vaccination program moving in the state, maybe we can meet earlier than that. But at this stage, we do not plan any in-person events until after June.
Thank you, Kevin. And that appears, in addition to applause for John Silva, it appears to be our only question as it relates to celebrations and upcoming. So I would like to take this chance to just thank you for your attendance and your active participation in SEAONC. We hope that you'll consider where your passion aligns with our current and future SEAONC initiatives. And as always, please contact me or any of your board members with feedback on the future direction of SEAONC. Thank you so much for attending today, and please stay safe.